We just broke a record here locally for the most consecutive days of 105 plus degree weather on record. I'm not exactly excited about it. Part of my plan for this whole forge setup revamp has been to build a combination of air evacuation / blower setup. We're going to relocate my blower outside, and we're going to plumb the inlet up to the peak of the roof. That way the hot air from inside the shop gets sucked outside, goes through the blower, runs through the fire pot, and then I'll make a second duct that'll actually go and blow up the chimney to create a Venturi effect. I do still need to make a gate valve for the fire pot itself, and then it's mostly just building ducting and then attaching the blower to the fire pot itself. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the gate valve. So I know what a gate valve is, but it occurs to me I don't actually know how to design or build one. The basic premise is you have a thin rectangular box with a plate or gate that slides back and forth inside the box. The wide sides of the box and the gate have holes that align when the gate is fully extended, and when retracted, the gate blocks off the airflow, like a gate. And I don't actually like to drill the pilot hole with the pilot drill itself, at least not for metal, because what tends to happen is you blow through that first section and then it pops and then catches and then it wants to torque and break the bit. I usually drill that first. I guess technically I could just use a piece of 1/4 inch round stock for a guide. In fact, actually, since this is an expensive pilot drill with the one flat ground onto it, I am going to use my mostly worn out, reground 1/4 inch bit for a pilot. I see a lot of people burn these up by spinning them too fast and not using oil. Run them slow, use lube, otherwise you're just going to burn it up trying to get it in the hole. It's a fairly simple device if you build it correctly, which I didn't, so it leaks quite a bit of air when it's partially open. Fortunately, I have more than enough airflow to make up for it. I could say my design flaws are because of the heat, or because I drastically underestimated their complexity, or because I did absolutely no advanced research. But I think it was the heat. Originally I was going to make a simple adapter to attach a flexible duct, but I'm not one to pass up an opportunity to waste half a day fabricating to save $13. I've had this 2x3 rectangular tubing sitting around and figured it was a good size for the duct. Once I had it all welded up, I decided to make slip fittings on the ends to allow for some misalignment, and it doesn't matter if they leak a little bit because I have more than enough airflow. That's going to be it for the air inlet. I put a jog in it because I didn't want it going into the next set of ribs. I wanted to keep it pretty close to the vertical duct that's going to be on the outside. The gate valve works, the clinker breaker works. Ash dump is probably going to have to get bolted on after because I don't think all of this is going to fit through the hole at the same time. I do need to still buy a new bolt for this. I can put a lock nut on the back side of so it doesn't come undone. And with that, it's ready to go in. I'm making this out of whatever I can find. I don't know how well this is going to work yet, and between our house falling apart and having a kid on the way, it's difficult to budget anything for shop use right now. And speaking of shop budget, I wanted to thank everybody for helping me reach 1,000 subscribers last week. It's the first big milestone for my YouTube channel, and I want you all to know how appreciative I am of your support. Your likes and comments are really helping my channel grow, and I'm really looking forward to making more and better content. As you might be able to tell, I'm cheating a little bit and using the ribs on the side of the building as part of the exhaust duct that will feed the blower. So I forgot to film cutting this part out. But you can see I've already got the duct in place. So now I've got to go make the box to attach the fans to on the outside. I made a mistake when I originally built this blower. I had said the fins on the fan are supposed to point rearwards relative to the direction of rotation. While both styles do exist, this is supposed to be a forward-facing fan, so I'm flipping it in the housing. This will theoretically run quieter and produce more air. Now I'm working out the dimensions for the box I'm going to mount the fans on. I'm using 18 gauge for this box to give it some structure, since it's going to have two fans hanging off of it and I don't want it falling apart. I'm making sure to mark the back and sides of this so I don't bend these backwards. My sheet metal brake is still outside in the sun, so I did all the bending off of camera. This assembly was cut off a car I parted out, and I'm just going to screw it straight to the back of the box. Leave a comment if you caught the mistake I just made. Oops, I measured off the wrong hole. Then we screw the box into place so I can trim the duct to length and close up the gap. And all of this is a bit patchwork. There is going to be a cover that covers all of this for weather protection,
but I'm trying to pay attention to how water would shed off of it if it were to leak, just so it doesn't fill the box with water.
Okay, now we just need to figure out which one is positive and which... oh, there they are. I was looking for these earlier, but they're embossed into the case right there. I have to find the proper pigtail for this, because these spade connectors are not standard. Okay, let's see. And we have air. This is a template trick used in auto restoration. I forgot, my test leads are a little bit too light duty for the amount of voltage we had going through them, and I kind of melted them a little bit.
And a lot of the footage here got lost because my camera kept overheating, so there's a few gaps in the project. Started working on the duct for the fan side. In theory, this vertical duct is going to blow up the chimney and create a venturi that'll help draw out smoke and vapor. Then this will attach through the wall to the blower assembly outside and have a mounting point for the chimney venturi. There's a cross brace that this venturi needs to go around, so I added a dog leg. Surprisingly, this was the only notable injury through the whole shop upgrade process. I tried to rivet this together, but it wasn't lining up and I was getting frustrated, so I resorted to self-tapping screws. And with these in place, I can just make a floating duct that slips between these couplers. Unfortunately, my measurements were a little bit off, and this needed a slight modification too. A little bit of a pain to get installed, but it does work.
And so, on to the final leg of our blower saga. I have a new power supply that should be able to keep up with the increased amps. Wire to do the same. Actually bought some inline fuses. That should be just about everything that we need. Oh, a bunch of wiring components and the tires I bought and decided not to use for the forge table. Receptacle boxes, switches, cover plates, receptacles, 120 amp receptacle. Oh, and then the strain relief slash, what are these called? I don't know. These things. We'll probably just use a couple of the switches in one of the boxes. We're going to be wiring these switches up to DC. They're not technically supposed to get used for DC voltage. I've got one switch for the air evacuation and then a second switch for the actual blower itself. Unfortunately, I couldn't afford a big enough power supply to run them both. Later I'll upgrade, but the going from a 30 amp to a 60 amp is a significant price difference. Relative to my budget, it's significant. So your mileage may vary. The rest of this is stuff that I've had for a while, or like a $3 soldering iron. Wiring was like 15 bucks. These were 22-ish. And this stuff I've been sitting on for probably a couple months now. Since before I started working on the shop anyway. So for the immediate future, I'm just going to be setting these up. I think I'm actually going to just cut this bracket off, and I am going to weld the box directly to the side of the chimney. And I couldn't find a double switch cover plate. I'll either be looking for that online or I'll just make one. I don't think I'll be wiring anything else because I don't want to take the time to do that right now. I just want to get the forge working. So for the immediate short term, I am going to solder these wires directly to the pins in here, because this fan is only going to get used in this system as long as it survives, and then I will replace it with the same type of fan used on the blower side. If we melt the housing a little bit, waiting for this pin to get hot, that is perfectly okay with me. There we go. That took way too long. So I don't know for sure where I want to mount the power supply itself. I'm thinking somewhere around here. Once you go up to the 30, they do have a cooling fan on them, so I do want to keep this on and then switch to output. Before I was just plugging it in and unplugging it, and I don't want to run the risk of it getting too hot. So I want to keep the fan running continuously. And the hot wire, I do know, is going to run to here.
You should really get a professional to do your electrical work. I'm not showing any of the details here because no one should be copying any of this.
Alright, well, let's see if anything blows up. Alright, well, the power supply powered up. And we have 12.1 volts. Here goes nothing. It's working. So I keep having camera troubles because of the heat. The cameras keep shutting off and I keep missing footage. I've got all of the wiring switched over to the second switch here, so now it actually flips on and off when the power supply is plugged in anyway. I'm going to go ahead and put some coal in the forge, and we're going to make the handle for the clinker breaker and give it a test. It's going to take a while to break the habit of trying to unplug the power supply. That's quite awesome. Little chunky when junk gets stuck in there. What I really need is a shorter lever between here and here to reduce that the amount of force it's taking. It'll do for now, Peg. So, it's done. This has been way more work than I signed up for originally. It is going to need the lip across the front and the side, and I do still want to make sides for it, but it does work now better than it did before I took it all apart. Unfortunately, my fan actually got louder. Part of that's because of flipping the fan around the other way, so it's spinning the other direction, and just the fan itself is making more noise. But it's also basically turning the entire shop into a drum. Yeah, I made that worse. It's not better. Fortunately, it is on a switch now, so I literally just flip a switch and it's over and done with. Plus, it's really not that big of a deal. I've mostly just been doing time-lapse stuff when I've got the blower running anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Outer skin of the chimney does not get anywhere near as hot as it used to. The previous setup, you get any kind of sweat on it and it just boiled off immediately. This one, I'd actually kind of wiped some sweat on it and it took a while for it to dry off. So that's going to do it for this one. I would be able to get back to some forging projects, but that cut that I got unfortunately was on my ring finger on my hammer hand, and for those of you that know, your ring finger is basically what steers and does the fine motor control for swinging a hammer. So yeah, making the handle for the clinker breaker was quite painful. I'm going to try to give it some time to heal up so that I'm not torturing myself while I'm making videos. I do have a couple other things that I want to work on in the shop. Hopefully I'll get one of those out midweek, and then for next weekend I can get back to some forging videos. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.